As Omicron rages across the country, confusion reigns for many folks as well. After all, breakthrough cases are rising fast, and that's causing some people to get cynical, while others double down on vaccine disinformation. Folks like right-wing commentator Candace Owens, who told followers that she wouldn't take the vaccine even on her deathbed. And that echoes bluster from Sarah Palin, who said that she'd only get a shot, quote, over my dead body. Now, this would seem to be tempting fate, given that nearly 840,000 Americans have died from COVID, including more than 300,000 after vaccines became widely available. And that's the tragedy here, because even as the U.S. is poised to break COVID hospitalization rates due to Omicron, the vast majority are among the unvaccinated, who are also 20 times more likely to die of COVID than those who are fully vaccinated and boosted. And despite those terrible odds, some people still seem willing to die to own the libs, which means they're willing to die for a lie. Many of them had been misled by right-wing media, fallen prey to conspiracy entrepreneurs or partisan grifters. But perhaps the most damning proof point is the number of prominent anti-vaxxers who've died of COVID during this pandemic. And it's a long list, but I think it's important to say their names, not to shame them, but so others don't die in vain. Because some tried to warn their followers that they'd been wrong in their final days, like Nashville radio host Phil Valentine. And in fact, local right-wing radio has lost a number of vocal anti-vax advocates, like Florida's Dick Farrell and Mark Bernier, who both died in August. Farrell, a Newsmax fill-in host, called COVID a scandemic on air, called Dr. Anthony Fauci a, quote, power-tripping lion freak. But from his sickbed, he texted a friend to get the shot, saying that he regretted not getting one himself. COVID also came for anti-vax Christian radio hosts Pastor Bob Enyart and Jimmy DeYoung, who called the vaccine, quote, government control. Far-right podcast host Douglas Kazuma caught COVID at a QAnon-friendly conference and initially blamed it on anthrax, while pro-Trump radio programmer Todd Tucker died of COVID after reportedly ridiculing vaccines on Facebook. And arguably the most influential of these folks was Marcus Lamb, the 64-year-old co-founder of Christian TV network Daystar, who told people to pray rather than get vaccinated. And of course, the feedback loop between right-wing media and Republicans is strong. And so we've seen vocal anti-vax politicos pass as well, like 52-year-old Washington State Senator Doug Erickson, a staunch conservative who led Trump's campaign in his state, or Michigan official William Hartman, a vaccine opponent who you might remember tried to block Joe Biden's election win in Detroit, or Texas Republican official H. Scott Appley, who mocked vaccines and masks on social media. He was just 45. Of course, all this tragic misinformation has a downstream effect on people like 30-year-old mask opponent Caleb Wallace, founder of a group called the San Antonio Freedom Defenders, or the Minnesota anti-mask doctor Christopher Foley, who pushed unproven alternative treatments, or more recently, the 46-year-old Orange County Deputy DA Kelly Earnby, who fought vaccine mandates and looked to a future in Republican politics. Her husband said she was not vaccinated. All of these are tragedies, unnecessary losses that have brought heartbreak to their family and friends. And they are sadly not isolated at a time when conspiracy theories persist despite a rising death toll among the unvaccinated. There are many, many more cases we could mention. But what more evidence could anti-vax skeptics really need? Don't let yourself be a statistic. Because let's face it, these people died for a lie. It is a stark and painful reminder that disinformation and misinformation can be deadly, especially during a pandemic. And that's your reality check.